What's up, everybody? It's Chad. We're back again with the season finale of Ask Chad Grassy Logic Season 3. Yeah, I know. Oh, I know.
Season cliffhanger?
Season kid. I know, right? Just end it right here.
Know, just end it.
I like the, what is it, the Goodfellas or something like that?
Yeah. Will we change the background? I don't know. We can have someone walk in and point a water gun at you and see what happens.
I know, right? And then you're like, do, will he be okay next season? Or will he be soaked?
Nah, that's too much editing. Nah, we won't do that.
Right. You know, goodbye to the debt and the electronics.
Absolutely.
I'm also streaming on TikTok right now just for funsies. Yeah, I figured I'd do that.
Oh, you do it on TikTok too?
Yeah, I do it on TikTok too. So I figured, okay. Screw it, why not?
All
so
right.
today we don't have a guest. I figured, season finale. I did have an idea. It kind of fell through, but I think we're going to do it the first episode of season 4 next season.
Season 4.
Season 4. I know we've been doing this for a while now. So the first episode for that, I think that's what I'm going to do. You guys are in for a good treat. If that's what happens, I'm not going to let you guys know, but you're going to know when season 4 starts when I let you guys know. It's usually around December time is when I start kind of getting those plans out.
I think we usually start up like second or third week in January.
Yeah. I don't really start like the very first week because everyone's still kind of recovering from the New Year's.
I think sometime shortly after the session starts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or right before the session starts and everything. So thank you all for joining this whole season. Those of you that just joined us, thank you for joining. Even if it's just for this episode or you just discovered us for this episode, we have plenty of more episodes that you can go back and watch. This has been going on for 3 seasons now. 3 seasons. So if you can't watch it here, or, if you're on YouTube or whatever, you can go over to Spotify, any kind of podcast place, and it should have all the podcast episodes and everything. So, Gino, I want to thank you for being a producer for, so many seasons and everything. It's been great, man. And, I look forward to keeping this going, and we got a bunch of ideas and plans for next season. And I think the show is going to grow even more. So it'll be a fun time.
Yeah, I click buttons.
He clicks buttons and he types things. So, but yeah. Anyway, today we got a couple of conversations that we're going to go through. I don't know how long this episode is going to be. We'll see if we get people on the Twitch. The Twitch, look at me sounding like an old Twitch. Over on the
How
Twitch.
old are you?
Yeah, I know, right? Go over to people on Twitch. See if we get a bunch of people on there. I'll answer some questions if you guys have any on there, or over here on the TikTok side. I don't see anybody joining on that one because I don't really use it as much. It's not very cannabis.
Well, you
friendly.
never know.
Yeah.
Some people could be coming in.
And on that side, they just see a blue screen. They don't get to see the cool leaves and everything behind me. So, yeah, I know. It's unfortunate.
Well, I didn't know you were going to do that.
I just did it. I don't know. You know me, random as shit.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with that. But the Twitch stream is up, so we're good to go.
Nice. Cool. Well, that's great to see. And we'll get this episode started. Sorry for a little delay there, but I kind of figured we have a little bit of fun at the beginning here and just kind of chat things out. It's the last episode of the season, and having Gino on screen is a little bit different,
Yeah, there's your cliffhanger. Will he be back?
No. So, but yeah, we're going to talk about a couple things today. One thing that it kind of just popped up, I guess, a couple days ago, and I just talked about this because a couple of days ago, too, some things changed. So I was hit up by a couple of ex-employees now of some Our Greenleaf stores around the state. Yeah. And they had informed me that a couple of stores had shut down. And then when you check the website, it confirmed that even here in Las Cruces, 2 of the stores that they own, or SWAS owns, shut down. And I think it was the Everest locations are the ones that shut down here in Cruces. And then I think they're keeping the Our Greenleaf because they own Our Greenleaf and Everest is what SWAS knows, or Medicine Man, as they're formerly known as. They're from Colorado, so they own shops in Colorado and here in New Mexico. As you guys know, they've gone through a slew of issues from lawsuits to losing money to now, shutting down shops. And it looks like SWAS or Medicine Man, they're going to be shutting down a bunch of shops. And I kind of figured that they would start here in New Mexico. And it appears that they have. So they shut down the 2 shops here in Las Cruces, and they shut another one down the other day in Alamogordo. And I think it was without notification, and I don't think anybody knew. So they shut that shop down in Alamogordo. And that's unfortunate. Anytime that patients lose access, I feel for it because I don't want patients to lose access to their medical cannabis. We fought so hard to keep this here in New Mexico. And once we went recreational cannabis, that there's no reason for us to forget the patients and everything afterwards. So anytime that happens, it's unfortunate. As much as I don't shop at any of these locations, I do feel for it. But luckily now we have many more locations that people can shop at in Alamogordo. So hopefully you guys can find a new home. Unfortunately, that does happen in the world of business. Places open up, places shut down. That's kind of the cycle of it, the life cycle of it. Yeah,
it is a cutthroat kind of business in general. But even in general, your favorite restaurant could be here one day and then gone the next.
So, yeah, exactly. Exactly, and it happens all the time. Not just in cannabis, it happens. I don't know how many times I've had friends who work for restaurants They go there and the door's locked.
Yeah.
They don't have a job.
Yep.
Or someone shows up for lunch and they don't have a job anymore. So it happens, and it's one of those things that's unfortunate. But hopefully these people that work there and also that used to go there as customers find a new home.
Actually, as I recall, I think maybe season 2, we showed it someplace and the doors were locked.
We did,
I'm not going to name it, but
Yeah.
we did that. We were supposed to do a show kind of on location, like, oh, okay, well.
Yeah. It's like, oh, what happened here?
Station, yeah.
Yeah. And then, you're like, okay, well, I guess they're no longer here. And it happens all the time. So that happened, right? And I was like, interesting, because I figured that they were going to sell and someone was going to pick up the debt, because Swas owns a lot of money in debt. And that's something that I've updated you guys in the past on this show. Is that the fact that Swaz was in a huge amount of debt, and they couldn't make up the
I think
most
I
of
took
it.
a peek at that number. That's a huge amount.
Yeah, like hundreds of millions of dollars almost, I think is what it was, or $100 million. But anyway, so it looks like they found a solution. So what they did is this company Vero met with Swaz, or Medicine Man, and they bought Swaz's debt. So essentially their IOUs that they bought that, and they bought it for $61 million.
Oh, okay.
So essentially they take over the company's assets and everything, and they pay for, or they take over that debt of $61 million, which is a steal for them.
Yeah.
Because they're getting all the assets. And I think that's, one of the main reasons why we're seeing so many, dispensaries shut down from the SWAT size, is because they were anticipating this and they're trying to get as much money back as they can possible. And we'll see what happens, because this is a huge change for the industry, because I got word today too, and I don't know how reliable this is. So, take this with a grain of salt. And I usually tell you guys, if I'm not sure of the reliability of something, I'm going to tell you. And this is one of those cases, but I was told that only a handful of stores on the SWAT side, or now Vero side, will be left here in New Mexico. And honestly, they're not even going to be called Vero. It's going to be under a new name called Newco, N-E-W-C-O. So I don't know if that will be the parent company name, but I don't know if they're going to change the dispensary's name. Okay. So I don't know if it's going to remain.
I feel like we should get a ball of yarn and a board to try and keep track of all the names and stuff like that.
I should do that over the break.
Over the break, yeah.
And then bring it and have it just behind us, and add it. Like, all right, here we go. Add this one here.
Yeah, we'll get rid of the ferns and just put that right there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very interesting that of all the businesses and all the talk about some of the businesses that could be all the businesses that could have been shut down, you would think that a lot of it would have been the local mom and pops that just maybe got in over their head. But it's interesting to see a big company like that maybe just stretched themselves too thin, opening a lot of stores and in new places as quick as they can.
Yeah, and the reason why a lot of this happened is, these guys have been around since the medical days. But what happened is Swaz bought up Everest and our Greenleaf before legalization, like right before legalization occurred. And so I think they were trying to bet on making the same amount of money that they're making when they bought the company initially, when it transitioned over to recreation, because I think they were under the impression that we were going to shut down licenses like immediately, and then they're going to be able to take over again and be the only place that you can shop at and just really dominate the market here in New Mexico. And that's not what happened.
Nope.
And I'm glad that's the way it went, because we would have a bunch of corporate businesses running our industry right now, and it wouldn't be as many mom and pop shops. There wouldn't be as many micros that we have here in New Mexico. So those for you, who are watching, New Mexico relies heavily on micro businesses. We don't rely heavily on the corporate businesses, which is great. That's that's a great thing. When your market is able to rely more on local businesses versus out of state entities. And don't get me wrong, some of the smaller ones are from out of state, but it's not a huge percentage versus the ones that are in state.
Yeah.
It happens, but it's not everyone. We'll see what happens with this whole, transition phase with this. Those of you that, lost your jobs or are about to, or work for Swaz or work for our Greenleaf or Everest, please be ready. Have an exit strategy now. It's better to anticipate your shop getting shut down now, maybe looking for another employer or a line of work or whatever you want to do, versus being shocked like some people have been in the past couple of days in Alamogordo when the shop just got shut down and there was no warning. So, this is your forewarning now. If you see a shop shutting down like this in mass numbers, be ready. Yours is probably coming next, because I don't think there's going to be many left over. I don't know what the exact number is. I think I ran into a number around 60 that they're going to be shutting down or something like that, between New Mexico and Colorado. So I expect quite a few here in New Mexico to get shut down. I think they had over 20 at one point, or that's where they're at right now. So we'll see. it's unfortunate for the people that work there. It's unfortunate for the patients, but at the same time, we're going through a huge reset in the whole industry as you know, as a whole in general.
But that's, I think that's the bubble that you've been talking about. That
Yeah.
you know, that's getting ready to. There's not necessarily a reset, more of a correction, more of a settling down of the market after a few years.
Yeah, you know, and you know, we're getting closer to that 5-year mark when you're
Yeah.
starting to, you know, enter to the mature market phase.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're in year 3. You know, we're heading to year 4. And so we're going to be getting into the weirdness, and things are going to change, and they're going to change in ways that we don't expect, because there's a lot of unknown variables that I'm not even thinking of right now that are going to pop up.
Okay.
And there's a lot of deals going on right now that we're not aware of, that are going on behind the scenes that are going to pop up as well too at the same time. So we're going to start seeing a lot of this stuff come up, and we're going to start to see a lot of people get out of the market. And we're going to see a lot of people that left the market who failed come back and try with a different model. And I am actually interested to see those people who actually failed, what they're going to do when they come back, because they learned. I hope they learned from their mistakes.
That would be the question. Did they learn their lesson? Did they learn the mistakes that they made so that they can correct them and be better prepared for what it's going to be like? You know, it's the Boy Scout thing, you know, be prepared. You never know what's going to happen there.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens on this front, you know, with these guys and everything. I'm kind of curious, you know, this new co that will be, you know, a mixture of Swaz and this Vero company, excuse me. You know, it's a little new to me. I guess Vero is a company that for some reason I have someone on video here for some reason. I have my video flipped over on that one side for some reason. But you know, this Vero company, it's I guess it's been around for a little bit. But I didn't know much about them before I found this story. And this story only came out a couple of days ago. So this deal has probably been going on for a little bit. It's not like this deal was something that was new. You know what I mean? You know, this is something that's been in the works for a little bit. And I kind of figured something like this was going to come down the pipeline once I saw that Swaz or Medicine Man was in so much debt. You know, and they were going through so many issues, because I mean, I think even the tips thing was something that they lost too. You know, next to High Horse, you know, they were another one that lost, you know, because here in New Mexico, you can't take your employees tips. And that was what was going on. And they're, you know, trying to give them to the managers and have pool parties with them. And you can't do that. And so they got sued, settled, and, you know, had to, you know, pay a bunch of money to people. And I don't know if, you know, everybody got paid or not, but, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, that's what happens when you don't follow the rules that are in front of you. I get it.
The rules are set there for a reason. They may not necessarily be reasons that you like, but you do things for a particular reason.
100%.
And most of the time, like what you do and the other advocates do, is try and make sure that everybody understands those rules and get them to in your favor, I guess you could say.
Yeah, exactly. You know, because, you know, you have to follow the rules that are set forth. You know, we don't have a choice. And the best thing that we can do is fight to get better rules, to modernize them, to deregulate. And that's the way that we do it. We don't do it by just doing whatever the fuck we want. We have to follow the rules in the meantime while we're trying to get them changed, because that's how real change happens. You don't change things by just saying, oh, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And maybe sometimes that might work, but, you know, for the most part, if you do the right thing and then fight for the change, actually talk to people, get them to understand why it needs to be this way, it's the better way to go. And usually they hear you a little bit better too, you know, because usually the other way around, you're a little loud and a little angry, you know what I mean?
And it just takes that one person that is a little loud, a little angry, and doing it the wrong way, where everybody else goes, okay, well, then we're just going to crack down, shut it down for everybody, that type of thing.
You know, and hopefully, you know, they don't do that with us. And I got more information. We got something similar with, you know, the whole shutdown thing of that on the Michigan side on the next conversation. Because there's a lot of shit going on around the States, man. You know, and there's a lot of stuff going on here in New Mexico too. You know, like this is a huge thing here. And we'll see what the ramifications for this and who's kind of going to take over as the big player. Because the sales that Swaz has is kind of hit and miss wherever you go in the state. Certain areas are doing okay. Certain stores are just doing terrible. But when you look at the numbers, they're still making a lot of money, but it's nothing near what they were making before legalization or right when legalization happened. Because you can look at the graphs. And the graphs can tell you a lot of things. It's interesting. You can even see, like in Rio Doso, you can see where the peak years for the skiing is and the tourism is by the sales of the cannabis there. You'll see it dip on the downtimes, and you'll see it a peak when, like, you know, skiing's there, when summer's going and stuff like that, and then you'll see it drop again when there's nothing going on.
Yeah, it's like a tourist peak.
Exactly. You'll see the tourist peak, and you know, you can see it real time and everything, and you can see that with, you know, with this company here in general. If you look at a lot of their stores at the very beginning, they're up here in sales, and then almost right away they start to hit this, you know, just dive, just boom. and it just goes down and down and down. And this depends on where they're at. Like I said, there's a couple areas around the state where they were doing all right. But for the most part they weren't, and I got word from employees, they're getting treated terribly, they're not getting paid right, went super corporate, it wasn't really about, the patient anymore. It wasn't really about, the community anymore. It was just about the money. And all the moves that they had been making, it just really said the same thing. These were really corporate like moves, them buying up their debt, because you can't do bankruptcy in cannabis because we're federally illegal.
Yeah.
So this is the only way that you can essentially do a bankruptcy kind of thing, and then go this route, because there is a legal process that's involved, but it's not going to be the one that protects you in a sense when you go bankrupt with a regular business, because cannabis gets the green weenie every corner that it turns. Even when it comes to it between with psilocybin legislation and cannabis, you could really see it too, because for some reason psilocybin doesn't have the same stigmas as cannabis. We talked about it many times, and it's weird, and I've noticed that throughout the time. I was like, this is weird. In our legislature, we passed medical psilocybin this past legislative session. It passed with flying colors. Literally no pushback. Everything that it went through, every committee that it was in, when it hit the House and the Senate floor, people were pretty much cheering for it. Like it was pretty much like a party. And once it got passed, everyone was excited. We're like the third state to do that, which is historic and good. We're top 3, but usually the first ones to do it are the first ones to fuck it up.
Well, that's just the way that it goes. You're the first ones to wade into the water. You're going to find out where all the sharks are and all the dangers are.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the unfortunate part about being the first states to do stuff like that, is you're the first ones to fuck up, because New Mexico has a lot of history on the first, because we were the first medical cannabis state in the late 70s, 1978. Then I think West Virginia or Virginia were followed, shortly after us as the second, and then California finally in the 90s. But California learned from our mistakes and did it better. Even though they were the third one, and then from then on snowballed, and everyone started learning from everyone else. And then once legalization came, we learned from people almost of a decade of doing it. We learned from what they did, and we're like, okay, we're not going to do a lot of these other things. This is what we're going to do. And to be honest, it's worked for us. And
so far so good, as they say.
But for some other companies, they didn't know how to shift. And I think that's the issue with Swaz, and the reason why they got bought out, and the reason why they went the route they did, because they didn't know how to shift. And you could tell when you go there and see the product, when you'd go there and see the marketing, when you'd go there and just talk to the employees, you could tell that they didn't know how to be cannabis community oriented anymore. And that's the unfortunate part.
That's
when you
kind of
lose
weird.
that.
Well, there's and not in any business, when you get into that corporate type of mind frame, and it's all about the numbers, it's all about the bottom line, it's all about the money that comes in with that. Then you lose sight of the fact that and I think you've said it before, this is a customer based business. It's a service type of business type. You are there to provide a service and to help out the patients and your customers, and if you lose sight of that, and it's all about make sure they buy this one because that's the one that's going to pay us the most or make us the most money, then it's not always the bottom line that makes you successful.
And with most things, scaling up isn't as easy as it is on paper. Like scaling
Ask
up
the Canadians too.
And you and I have been discovering that while doing this show, is that the Canadians are figuring out how hard it is to scale this up. Those grows that had hundreds of thousands or millions of square feet of canopy, and then they end up having to grow tulips because it was more profitable. And it makes sense to me, because you can
who doesn't like tulips?
Exactly. Like especially during I'm sure Valentine's Day is a great time.
Sure, it's a great time for tulips.
Of course, that's like their 420.
You can tiptoe through them, the whole thing like that. So only the older people are going to get that joke. So, I'll let if growing flowers is more profitable than what you intended to do, then hey, you kind of roll with it. The idea of that much space to try and manage it and make everything quality is just insane.
You're not making Twix. Like you're growing a plant. You're growing something that not only is it consumed, it's smoked, it's eaten, it's drank, it's vaporized, it's turned into many other things. Like when you go to an alcohol establishment, you're very limited on how you consume alcohol. It's drinking. Like there was that little there was that point in time, I think in the early 2010s, where they had like those alcohol vapor clubs and stuff like that. But it was very dangerous.
Those,
very dangerous. And you got those people that, do the other things with it. But for the most part, people drink it, and that's what you're stuck with. But cannabis, that's not what you're doing. You're smoking it, you're eating it, you're doing all these other things. It's not like a tulip that's just going to look pretty. When you give it to your girlfriend and it's sitting in the windowsill, like that's not what it's meant for. If that was the case, then by all means, grow it however you want, make it look pretty or whatever. But it's something different, and we're learning the hard way.
Yeah.
And a lot of these businesses that came in, we call them the dirty 30.
Yeah.
From very early in the medical days, we only had 30 something vertically integrated, cannabis establishments when we were medical cannabis before 2022 when we
for the entire state.
Yeah, for the entire state. And then after a while, they were able to open more dispensaries, which helped. But they needed to open up the licensing more to allow more before we went legal here in cannabis for New Mexico, because that didn't help, because we went to the shortage. Then all this illegal cannabis came in because of the shortage, and people, because your license could be up and going for a production, but how long does it take for you to grow a plant?
I don't know.
From seed to harvest?
How long
exactly.
does it take
months.
you to grow a plant?
It takes months almost. And when you're getting up like that, it's probably going to take you 6 months to almost a year to kind of dial things down. Like your first harvest isn't going to be the best.
No.
Then after that, you're going to start dialing it more and more and more. So it's going to take you over a year to really dial that grow in. So you kind of made people fail by default by forcing them to, hurry up and do this and do illegal stuff. And, and don't get me wrong, no one forced anybody to do illegal stuff, but they felt
it was an easier route.
Yeah. To make it, they felt that they had to go that route. And you don't have to. You just got to be humble and fight and, do things the correct way and not assume that this was going to be exactly like it was in Michigan or in Washington or in Colorado or California, or Nevada. This is New Mexico. Where none of those places, we had to do things totally different than everyone else because our population density is 17.
It's not that. And I was thinking that because I don't know if they did or not, but did they open up the production licenses, the growing licenses before they actually opened up?
Nothing. They didn't open any licensing up. Nothing. They opened up to one, I think, manufacturer right before legalization. It was really shady. It was this whole controversial thing, and it went away very quickly because the licensing opened weeks after. Okay. And so everyone kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
But that was a huge controversy. And that was one of the issues that we ran into with having closed licensing was there was this favoritism going on.
Yeah.
So they could do that where they'd open up for 2 hours, allow one person to, put their thing in and be like, oh, what? Well, it was open for 2 hours. You should have submitted. You should have had your paperwork ready. We don't know what to tell you. It was a really shady
all the paperwork was in the hallway over at City Hall. You should have been able to take a look at it.
Yeah, exactly. It was like the notification was in the basement of City Hall. How did you know? How'd you miss it?
Yeah.
You could have went down there and saw.
Yeah.
So they're blaming us, on gaslighting. So, hopefully we get some good changes. And who knows, maybe this will be good for SWAs or, our Greenleaf and whatever's left at the end. I have no clue after the gutting of this company is going to be done. I have no clue what's going to be left at the end of the day, but maybe this is going to be good. Maybe it's going to be smaller. They can focus on maybe getting craft in the door and maybe refocusing back in the patient. Yeah. So we'll see.
When you have a smaller number of stores or you have basically when you size down, it hopefully will make it a little bit easier to manage. Hopefully your customer service is the way that it's supposed to be. And like you said, maybe it'll make it easier for them to deal with some of the craft stuff and everything else that's going on here in the state.
Yeah. And I don't see them going in crazy places or, shutting down in really profitable places either. Mm-hmm. So, I do see them staying open here in Las Cruces. Yeah. I do see them staying open in Sunland Park. I do see them staying open in Albuquerque. The other areas I do see them staying open are possibly like near Texas, the borders. Yeah. Those make sense. The other little offshoot places, they're getting shut down. And Alamogordo was approved a testament to one. Yeah. It's more of an offshoot for them. It's not as profitable, obviously, and it wasn't worth it. So, it was more of a business move. So, more luck to you guys. Better luck next time kind of situation. And we'll see if this downsizing of the company is going to be, beneficial, which I think it could be.
I think it could be. I mean, it's one of the reasons that you do it. You know. You downsize it, you make things a little bit more easy to manage, and then you're able to go ahead and come back. It's not going to happen right away, but they've got to work for it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be one of those things that it takes a while, and it's not going to be overnight, but we'll see. Maybe we'll see a comeback from them. They're going to just be putting out fire and just, have some of the most, fire selections that you can select from it. Who knows? Maybe a consumption lounge will come from it. Who knows? That'd be cool.
Why don't they have any more of the bigger companies that have the money to go put these
know,
consumption lounges
man.
in?
And a lot of them aren't doing it right. We've talked about this many
I'm going
times.
to do something that I get annoyed with when everybody else does it. So
Yeah, and I'll talk to the sales guys here at the radio station, and they get business, right? And a lot of people in the industry don't get business.
yeah,
and that's okay. You guys are learning, but you have to be willing to learn too.
Yeah.
And the sales guys get it, and so when I talk to them about certain things, like even like the consumption lounge, they're like, "Well, why don't they do this way as this way?" I'm like, I don't know. For some reason, the way that they're doing it, they think that that's the best way, when every other business would tell you that's
Not the
stupid.
best way.
Yeah, that's not the best way to do it.
There are many paths, many roads to get to where you want to be, and you got to decide which one you're going to go. But it's a matter of best practices, best business practices. What's going to be the best road for you to go ahead and go on there?
Yeah.
And if somebody gets a different kind of idea and say, I want to try this, then that's fine. They might discover a better way to go ahead and get it done.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, when most everybody else goes like, well, why aren't you doing it this other way?
Yeah.
It's so learn by your mistakes, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. Like sometimes you have an opportunity to leave the trail you're on and get back on a better one.
Exactly.
Like it's okay to try the other direction, but if you have the opportunity, if it's not working in that trail you're on, it's too bad. Get back on the right track.
I have way too many stupid geek jokes to go with that one. It's like you roll your Dungeons and Dragons thing. If there's a monster at the end of the hallway, you just got to go like, maybe we're not going to go this way.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
don't always have to fight the monster. Sorry, I had to do it.
Yeah, but anyway, more luck to you guys. Nuco, I guess, is the new name of the
and I don't even play Dungeons and Dragons, so I don't know.
I've never played it in my life. I'm kind of learning about it more recently. I heard about it growing up, and I kind of thought it was the kids in the cafeteria at lunch that were kind of playing.
The geeks.
Yeah. So
not this one.
I was a secret when I watched my anime in secret. When I was younger, because back then it was like a sin.
I don't even make it a secret. You've seen my backgrounds on my computer.
These days I don't. I'm like, screw it. I don't give a shit. I'm old. We're gonna move on to the next topic, and our last topic for this season finale of the show and everything. I know it's going quick.
Okay.
Usually we have that 30 minutes of the guests and everything that we talk about. We don't have that, so it's moving quick and everything. So Michigan's being a little weird. And
Michigan's always been a little weird.
Yeah, it is. And at first I was like, man, good for you, Michigan. They had the number one, sales in the nation when it came to cannabis. They have the number one program. And then they turned around and just lubed it up and shoved it in a hole no one wanted. So not only did they increase their cannabis tax, but there's also talks from, some other people that are involved with the industry. And to me, when I read the article, it seemed like the people involved we got Ziegler here. They've always been a little weird. So I agree with you there. Michigan, they increased their tax to that weird wholesale thing, and then the premise behind it and their explanation is, we're going to use this to fix the roads. And it's like, okay.
You seen the roads in Michigan?
I have. I've never been there. So
I just went when the Aggies went to was it the bowl game up in Michigan?
Yeah.
Didn't see much of the roads because they were all covered in ice. It was in the middle of December, right?
Yeah.
I think they need some work. I've had some friends up there saying like, I'm not sure what they're spending it on, but it's not the roads.
They're probably spending a lot on salt. That probably ain't good for roads.
That's not necessarily doing all that.
So that could be a big reason why. But for whatever reason, they raise the tax, and they're estimating, of course, $420 million that they're going to raise. I don't see that being the case. No. And especially with the fact that they're oversaturated with product right now.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, reading the article that I was reading, it seemed like they talked to a group that seems like the NM Cannabis Chamber. It seems like they try to be the voice for the industry, and they're for certain businesses, not everyone, and they haven't talked to everyone. So the people in this article are for closing licenses. They want to shut it down and make it to where it's one dispensary per every 10,000 resident. Now, keep in mind, Michigan has way more people than New Mexico does. So something like that wouldn't work here at all. So to get that out of your fucking mind, if you guys are thinking about that. No. Remember, population density, 17. This is, I don't know Michigan's, but it's more than fucking 17.
It's more than 17.
Yeah. Colorado's is even more significantly than ours. So they want to cap that number to it. And to be honest, you can't blame the retailers. The retailers are only selling what's available.
Mm-hmm.
And what's available is an overabundance of product. And who do you blame for that? The producers, the growers.
I think I've mentioned this to you before. If the producers are not self-regulating themselves, because you can grow a bunch of stuff, but if you can't sell it, why are you growing that much? Grow
Yeah.
enough to just it's like you should grow enough to keep the demand there, so people want more of it, and then can maybe scale up to a little bit to meet that kind of demand.
Yeah.
But don't just like grow a bunch of stuff and then say, even the Canadians where they grow a bunch of tulips and all of a sudden nobody wants tulips anymore, that's gonna suck.
Yeah, exactly.
So one, it keeps quality in there. Two, it keeps the demand for what you have in there. And I don't understand why the producers aren't regulating themselves in that way.
Me neither, you know, because you should not be outgrowing yourself. You know, and that's what a lot of these guys are doing, and not in a good way either. You know, you're outgrowing yourself, and what I mean by that is you're growing too many plants than what you can produce. I mean, than what you can sell.
Yeah.
And you're growing too many plants than you can actually touch every day and make sure that it's good quality.
Yeah,
you're just putting out something to have it. Actually, Justin, yes, the smaller plant counts would fix it. I've said this many times before on the show, so those of you who have been here many times, you know, I'm sorry, I'm kicking the dead horse till it's dust, but I will. So in New Mexico, we actually have something in our law. There's nothing in it that will limit licensing. So licensing remains open due to statutes. The CCD can't do it. No one can do it unless the law changes. What we do have is the CCD has the power to control the plant counts. So they can control from 1 plant to 1 million plants. That is controlled by the CCD. However, the CCD is also required to do an assessment every year to see the national kind of demand and the state demand for cannabis, so that way they can adjust those numbers so we can avoid the situation. So yes, Justin, adjusting the plant counts would have fixed that. And when they wrote the law, that's the way that they intended it. And they did that for a reason.
Here in New Mexico.
Yes, right. That's in our CRA.
Yeah, but not in Michigan.
Not in Michigan. Michigan doesn't have that statute in there. You know, to be honest, I don't want to say that it isn't because I haven't read their bill. So I don't know if it is, because we have that in our legislation and they're not really using it. Yeah. They haven't done that since we went recreational cannabis in 2022. We passed the law in 2021, but of course, you know, a whole year to, you know, well, actually it was like 6-8 months to get everything going and up and running. So we had all that time and everything, and you know, we had that time to kind of figure out the plant counts, and they only did a study once, and they're supposed to do it every year. I got word that they're supposed to release a new study out, and they're supposed to adjust the plant counts, because the plant counts, the way they're at right now, was an emergency. Because at the beginning, yes, we did need more production, and like the producers sued, and they did rule that yes, we do need more plants. You know, you have to increase it, so they did. And the CCD is afraid of getting sued again, because, you know, of the same reason. But this is not 2022. This is totally different now.
Yeah.
Demand has totally changed, and you can see it in the sales. It's starting to kind of, you know, flatten out a little bit, and it's starting to calm down. So we're going to see a shift, and so we do need to adjust the plant counts.
Yeah.
You can't sell what's not there, and it's not. And a lot of people have the idea of, you limit the retail, you limit the supply. No, you limit the production, you limit the supply. It's a supply and demand thing. And I don't know where this came from.
Basic economics that you have to go through if anybody's been through an economics
I have, and that's the crazy thing. Yeah. This is basic economics that I learned in high school and college.
Yeah, I have. and my nephew who's attending NMSU this year as a freshman, he's going through the economic stuff right there. And I said, it's basically comes down to people want a product.
Yeah.
That's the demand. You have to be able to give the supply of that product. If you give too much of that product, what you're going to have is everybody gets what they want. They'll get it for really cheap prices. And you often have a product that's not good, it's good in quality, and then it's just sitting around in your warehouses.
Exactly.
And that goes for cannabis, that goes for, you know, root beers, it goes for, you know, any kind of product that you have or service. If there's too much of it, quality usually goes down, and you're just going to have
and
the
prices
are going to go down.
Prices tank.
And then you're not going to be able to afford to keep up that type of production.
Yeah.
You know, because you just can't get rid of your stuff.
That's a good question, Justin. To be honest, me personally, I think 8,000 should be the max, because once you hit that 10,000 mark, then it starts to become like harder and harder to keep the quality up, and then you start running into more and more issues. So to prevent that, it would be at 8,000, but to be honest, in reality, it's probably going to be more like a 10,000 number to be the max. And of course, the micros are actually protected at their 200 mature plant counts. Because here in New Mexico, we don't do canopies or square footage. It's a mature plant count, meaning if your plant is mature, not by size or length or whatever, if it's a mature plant, it counts. If not, it doesn't count. You get unlimited immature plants, because that's what you're worried about, is the mature.
Is the mature plants. Okay, I'll take your word for it. But that's what I said when the growers should be self-regulating on themselves.
Yeah.
if you want to keep your quality of your product, because I think your quality was going to sell more than just here's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you want, I don't know, because you know, I don't partake or anything like that, but to me it would seem, if you're going to find something that's really, really good right there, you're going to go back and ask for it.
Yeah.
You know, and if a grower or a company gets that reputation, it's like, oh, they always have some good stuff, and if they come out with something new, you're going to try that. But you know, if it's just, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, people would be hunting for some other different things, or basically for the stuff that they like.
Yeah, you know, and this opens it up for more variety and
Yeah.
everything, you know, and it keeps you more humble, and it allows you to focus on, like you said, on the quality. And, you know, you're not sitting there tanking the price, because some people did this on purpose. You know,
Yeah.
they overproduce to tank the price on purpose, so that way they can be the only person and they can create a monopoly.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to avoid. And keeping licenses open avoids that.
Yeah. And how's that working out for
everyone else?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I mean, Michigan has licenses open, but they're not doing anything on the production side.
Yeah.
And even this fix right here doesn't fix that issue at hand.
Mhm.
They just, we just updated a few weeks ago, you know, they added how many hundreds of thousands of plants to their market.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, okay, so you have this overproduction issue, and so you're going to make it worse by adding more plants?
yeah.
Like, what fucking planet do you live on? So unfortunately, they're doing that, and I hope that they go a different route, and I hope that there's advocates in that state that are saying otherwise, because the people that usually are in these articles are people that have money,
Mhm.
people who are part of these groups, and the lobbyists and stuff, right?
Yeah.
They kind of mute out people like myself who are advocates, and I have to fight for my space in these articles and stuff, and reach like, no, this is actually what's being, because I do town halls, if you guys don't know. I do town halls, I go around the state, and I ask everybody in those areas that are operating, I invite them over, and we ask them, what are your concerns? And the open licensing usually isn't it. It's the overproduction. It was the lack of enforcement. It was the fact that, you know, they're cherry picking the people that they want to inspect all the time versus going to the people that actually need to get shut down and get inspected. So there was a lot more things other than what people were saying, well, we just need to shut the licensing down, because the idea for Michigan to do one dispensary per 10,000 resident came from the liquor side. And we don't need to be regulating cannabis like liquor, because we did such a terrible fucking job regulating liquor that why would we want to do the exact same thing and make the same exact mistakes?
Yeah.
We need to be learning from those mistakes and not doing them. And even in liquor and alcohol here in New Mexico, even on the micro side and the micro producer side, there is a limit on how much you can produce, on how many gallons you can produce.
Yeah.
There is a limit. So they do limit production, which makes sense. You know, limit the production. But the way that they have that set up, it's more vertically integrated kind of thing. You know, you have your micro, and then you sell it yourself at a little whatever thing. So it's structured different, which it should. You know, it's something totally different. Yeah, you know, but cannabis is not alcohol, and study after study, time after time, and state after state has proven that.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we still fall back on this failed approach. You know, people think that you should restrict certain industries to people because of blank reason. But at the end of the day, all you're doing is just making a playing field for the rich, and you're making a playing field for people who aren't from that industry.
Yeah.
And you're going to make it easier for them, because the people from the industry, they're going to figure out a way, from the community, they're going to figure out a way to succeed. You know, I've seen people come into this industry with nothing, create something small, work it up, build it up, and now they're doing great.
Yeah.
So, you know, that is possible with the way that we have it set up in the state. But there are some tweaks that we need to make, and ensuring that our plant counts come down here in New Mexico is what we need to do. It's already in the law. We don't have to change anything. It just has to be implemented. So what I'm saying is, why would we try to change something that hasn't even been implemented yet, when this other approach has been proven to not work, i.e. closing licenses, or even a moratorium on licenses, or a pause on it? Because we all know here in New Mexico, when they pause something, they never fucking open it again. You know, like, that's just how it goes. You know, we can't trust the state to do that. We can't trust our legislature to do that. It changes all the time with every election. So, you know, why would we trust that process when we already have this process? So,
well, like I've said, the idea of self-regulation, letting the market kind of work itself out. You know, as far as the retail businesses go, some people make good decisions, some people make bad decisions, and most of those ones that are making the right decisions are going to stick around, and it'll, you know, that will kind of level off. That will be that bubble that kind of bursts, where you're going to see a lot of people that drop off as far as open licenses, because not everybody that gets a license is going to succeed. Yeah, they have the opportunity and the chance to, and that's the key. But if you don't make the right decisions, it's not going to happen. As far as the growers go, like I said, the self-regulation on that is something that I don't understand why they're not doing. because what you want to do is create a demand for your product. You want people coming in to the different dispensaries and the different retail shops going, hey, do you have this? Because I heard this is really, really good and all that. So the idea, and I would like it, like I said, I don't partake, but I would like it. It would be really, really cool if New Mexico was known for that craft cannabis.
Yeah.
You know? If
We already kind of are. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, people in other states talking about,
Yeah.
hey, did you hear about that, you know, that whatever stuff you guys do? You know, did you hear about that?
Gino's still learning now. Gino's still learning.
I don't know all the names for everything.
Yeah.
Like that. They're like, you know, horse race names. I don't know all of those either, but they're just as interesting. But if you know, you heard about this and you want to try it, or somebody from New Mexico, you go back home and you say, hey, try this. You know, somebody's going to want that one.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be interested in, does your dog bite? I don't know.
And you know what? I love going to the other places that I go in the state and checking out, you know, retails and seeing what craft they have there. Because I want to try something I never tried before. You find those diamonds in the rough.
Do you see a lot of that when you visit some of the other states so do you see a lot of craft stuff like that? And it's not the same as it is here.
No. There's a lot of corporate cannabis in other states. And there's a lot of, you know, mid-tier kind of corporate, you know, craftish kind of grows that are going on. And unfortunately that's caused a lot of the quality to go down, and people think that, oh, this is great, when, you know, it's not, you know, and it's not the best. And I hope to start seeing that in other states. Now other states have started to implement that, and coming online, especially the newer states that have started legalizing it. Most of the newer states have implemented some kind of micro production license after we implemented it here in New Mexico, and it showed so much success.
Oh yeah.
And then the other states that did it started to show success too, because I think we were one of the first states to kind of lean heavily on the craft side versus lean heavily on just relying on Coors and, you know, Busch Light to kind of
I was trying to avoid the
I hate doing that. It's the only way
that
I hate doing it. It's the only way sometimes to get people to understand.
Basically, you will have your corporate cannabis, which is your supposedly like your buds and your Coors and all that other stuff like that. And then it gets so much corporate that you get into your Keystones or your Pabst or something else like that. But everybody's looking for that Shiner. Or everybody's looking for that Moose Droll. I want to bring that up again.
God.
Good stuff.
The longboard, the big wave, you know, the El Lumbre or El Cumbre here in New Mexico. Yeah, Cumbre. That was a really good one.
They had some good stuff. They were around when I was drinking stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so it was, you know, you're going to have a lot of those that are going to be very popular. So like I said, for everybody that's out there, I mean, do you want your state, do you want your stuff to be known for that good stuff that you're trying to hunt for? Or is it, you know, Keystone Light?
Yeah, you know, and I don't want us to be known, because Oklahoma has a really bad reputation right now for being known for mids, you know, not having quality.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, they do have quality there, but they're not known for quality. They're just known for mass, you know, for sending it to other states like here in New Mexico. You know, that's what Oklahoma's reputation is. New Mexico's, and it's already kind of going that route, is the craft stuff. Yeah, I'm a grower, not a shower. I did a kickball tournament this 420, and I was with the grow store, and I was like, "Can we be the growers, not showers?" Because there's a bunch of growers with us too, and they started laughing. I was like, "I'd love it if that could be our name."
That's excellent. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, right. That needs to be a team name. But, you know, New Mexico's already kind of getting that name of, you know, craft. You know, this is where you go to find the craft rosin. This is where you go to find that diamond in the rough flower. You know, I actually got some Frost Factory flower the other day. You know, they're not micro at all. They're, you know, it's top crop, you know, dark matter. And it was an orange one, and I loved it. Smells great, smokes good. I do wish the flavor was a little bit better on the smoke. But it was still really good to smell that high terpiness of the orange, or the Tropicana sulfurs, as we found out that they are those, you know, the citrusy kind of flavors that are high in that, because that's what I really enjoy.
Okay. This might be a little bit off topic, but do you think that with more of the legalization that's come around, because in the traditional market, I'm learning the terms here, in the traditional market, you kind of just get what you get for the most part. Yeah. But now that legalization has, and you have these names that go along with some of these growers and everything else, that even if it's a lower quality, that the quality is better than what the traditional market used to be. So that's why a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, this is really good stuff. But in terms, for me, it's like, you know, getting a Jack Daniels, but then looking for an Eagle Rare. You know, as far as bourbon goes, or whiskey like that, because there's some of the people that are out there that are always hunting for that, that really craft bourbon that's out there, that one select bottle that's going to be really awesome, that's going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
So is it something more like that, where even most of the generic cannabis that's out there now, because of legalization, is actually better than what you used to get on the traditional market?
It depends.
Okay.
That really.
Or is some of it even worse?
Sometimes, yeah, and sometimes it's vice versa. It really depends on your source. You have some really fire producers on the traditional market who are just putting out fire still to this day and will never become on the legal side. They'll just never do that. And then, by all means, do what you got to do.
Oh, those Kentucky moonshiners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're pretty much going to be just the moonshiners to the day till they die. Some of those guys put out just straight fire. Then you got those Chinese farms that are putting out those super mids.
Why do you always blame the Chinese, Chad?
Because those assholes tend to just be the ones doing it. I don't know why. If it was Canada, I'd blame them.
Hey.
South Park joke. South Park joke. Got to be old for that one.
Hey, buddy. They make great tulips. It's fine. No, I was going to say that you can blame China all you want. I've been to the dollar stores. So, so you have your nice craft cannabis, and then you have your Chinese grows that are just, who knows what you're getting.
Yeah, exactly. You got this, just bucket of just whatever the fuck in there, this pig feed. That you have no clue what it is, but you also have these great producers, but you have it on both sides. Mm-hmm. You have it on the legal market and you have it on the traditional market.
Yeah.
And some of these guys on the legal market, they're backdooring their shit anyway.
Yeah.
Like in California, that's like the only way certain people are getting by. Because the taxes are ridiculous, the fees are ridiculous, and just everything's being ridiculous. And the fact that only 30% of the cities allow cannabis to be sold in that state, one of the most populated states, only 30% of the cities allow cannabis to be sold in the first place. That blew my mind. Because if that was the case, they would be making so much more money. Mm-hmm. They'd be way more of a model to go off of.
Yeah.
Versus looking at someone like us. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad people are looking at states like us to kind of model stuff off of. But, that doesn't have to be the case.
So that 30% is probably just the big cities, LA, San
mostly
most
a lot of big cities. I think there's a couple that didn't go ahead, like in Colorado Springs is one of their bigger cities, and they opted not to.
Yeah.
And they only had medical, and my dad, he's from Fremont County, and that county decided not to, and they're only medical. And so, anytime I went to go visit family, I'd have to go to Pueblo, which is a county over, and I forget which. I think it might be El Paso County. They allowed it. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. That might be Springs.
I think that's Springs.
I think it's Springs. I forget what county Pueblo's in, but Pueblo's in a different county, so they allow it. Mm-hmm. And so it's an unfortunate thing. Here in New Mexico, we don't do that. We don't allow them to ban sales because it didn't make sense. It created these issues that these states are having. Not
in the ruralness that New Mexico is. Any place that bans it is just like taking a huge little chunk out of the state there. So that doesn't make sense.
And even when I look at something like this, I was like, so if we did exactly what Michigan did of 10,000 residents per one dispensary, we would be fucked here in New Mexico. Now, don't get me wrong.
Sunland Park would be jacked.
Oh my God, Sunland Park would be so fucked because they're not realizing of the border areas of New Mexico, because within a 60-mile radius of Las Cruces, New Mexico, is like 3 million people because of Juarez and El Paso. Being such close proximity. Yeah. And we could even go 30 miles and it's still within the millions. So that's something that they're not going to take into account when it happens, or if that would be the case, and we would end up fucking ourselves. And to be honest, we shouldn't be modeling everything off of alcohol, because I said it before and I'll say it again. They fucked that shit up. So why would we want to, be on that same path? Yeah. And screw things up that way. Yeah. So I think that Michigan's on the wrong path. They're also trying to do the Delta 8 hemp stuff ban and go that route. So, Michigan's just doing a bunch of funky stuff, and it's unfortunate. And I hope that they figure it out in the end. And here in New Mexico, I hope we still stay on our track of we do what we do because we're different. Yeah. And we have to do this because we're different. And we're not going to be a Michigan. We're not going to be a Colorado. Because already on the psilocybin side, we already have out-of-state entities from Colorado trying to influence our rulemaking process here in New Mexico and trying to, reflect what they do there, what we do here. And I think that's a terrible idea. Why are we listening to other states and other people from other states?
That haven't figured out how to do it.
Exactly.
Right anyway.
I don't give a shit if you're from Oregon, if you're from Vegas, if you're Washington, if you're Colorado. You're not fucking in Colorado. You're in New Mexico. And this has to work different because we are different.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now I was going to say which one.
Oh yeah, Justin. Yeah, there was actually a couple that were on some tribal lands that were owned by Chinese, and luckily they did get shut down. I updated a couple weeks back, I think about a month ago, is the guy that was a part of it. He actually, one of them, he pleaded guilty. And so we'll see what happens with that and that whole process. He did try to sue the state and everything for the whole process. But I was like, buddy, you're caught right now. I don't know what to tell you.
Why are you going to try and sue the state so they can figure out everything else you were doing wrong as far as, human trafficking?
Yeah. They had people in poor conditions. They had, come to find out, they had tribal members there, not as well as illegal Chinese farm workers from China that were living in poor conditions. They were taking their phones or keys and shit like that. Like some real like Hallmark kind of esque, shit going on over there that, like just really disturbing.
The fact that you were growing cannabis, legally kind of pales in comparison to all the other shit that they were doing. So
yeah, exactly.
So which one is basically what I was going to say about that, because there's a few.
So we'll see what happens here in the state and over in Michigan. So I hope the regulators listen to the actual industry and not the people that claim to be the voice of the industry, because that's not the way this should work. Everybody has a voice, and you shouldn't feel like you have to pay somebody to have a voice. The way our democracy works and the way that our government works is all you have to do is set up an appointment to talk to your representative. May it be Todd from the CCD, may it be your senator or House representative, may it be your city representative on your city council, maybe the mayor. Set up a meeting with them and sit down with them, especially here in New Mexico. We are very fortunate that we have such great access to all of our lawmakers and all the people in our government. Other states don't have that kind of access that we do without a lot of money. But here in New Mexico, you can lose elections very easily. So they have to listen to a lot more people than just the people with the money.
Let me ask you a question. When you do your town halls, do you give any invitations out to a lot of our officials?
Yeah, I send them direct ones. I'll send them emails. I'll tag them on Twitter, and I'll tag them on on social medias and stuff. And I'll tell people I know that know them, and hopefully they'll show up. And sometimes they'll respond. And I've had politicians show up to some town halls before.
That's awesome.
I've had a couple show up, which is great. I love when the politicians show up, and they can either take questions or listen directly from their constituents.
Exactly.
And that's why I invite them, because when I do these cannabis town halls, it's the direct people in their area and their constituents that are there talking about real problems that they're dealing with, not just, oh, I paid this group to tell the legislature about my problems, everything's fixed. No, not everything's fixed at all. Like, because you're not talking directly to them, they're not relaying the message exactly how you would, and have an explanation. Maybe the way that lobbyist from that organization, he's talking too smart to a representative who's more of a farm guy. Yeah. Maybe he needs that shit kicker that needs to talk to him like, hey, dude, this is going on over here. Look, there's a bunch of bullshit going on, and we need to fix it.
Just a bunch of farmers talking to other farmers.
Exactly. Like you can't have the city boy talking to the farmer, because the farmer and the city boy don't understand each other.
I think I think the CCD needs to get a rep from our ag department, and so they can get a little bit more insight onto how agriculture in general works. And, you can be the advocate that you are, Chad, but I would advocate that we get a lot more people getting behind it from all of the different sides of the business, from the growing, the retail, the packaging, all the stuff that goes along with that, so that you have that coalition to it.
Yeah, and someone actually mentioned this to me. We should have more of those coalitions, like the hash rosin makers. The hydrocarbon extract makers, your BHO makers, and stuff like that. Your distillate makers as well. You have the guys with those, and so that way they can talk to each other, because a hash rosin maker's issues are going to be different from the hydrocarbon guys.
Okay.
Your hydroponic guys' issues are going to be different from your living soil guys, because here in New Mexico we actually have a lot of living soil farms, and I've talked to people from other states, and I said, I think you guys have the most living soil farms that I've ever seen in any other state. Which that's kind of cool, because it's putting out some pretty good product. I'm actually a firm believer now of living soil, and then I'm preaching the good word of the living soil these days.
Well, you just said a whole lot of words that I'm going to have to get to my cannabis to English dictionary to understand and get that. So
I'm sure you'll hear this again during the edit, so you'll have time to look it up.
I'll have time to look it up. What the? That's how I learn. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Completely. I think everybody has their lobbyists, everybody has their coalitions that they have to get together, but to get everybody to work out some of the problems that makes it best for everybody, you got to talk to each other. You got to get these people talking.
Yeah.
So the town halls that you do are pretty awesome. I mean, I'll tune into the town halls and say hi every once in a while.
I see that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Just to figure out, going like, did you try plugging in the mic?
Giving me IT shit while I'm sitting there fixing things. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to offer to go on the road when he goes on, does all that stuff. But if I got a weekend free, we'll see.
Yeah, because we do this out of our own pockets. No one pays us to do this. We don't take donations. This is literally out of our own pockets. We're just a group of cannabis business owners, advocates, workers, just that are concerned and want to hear people's opinions on the matter.
I push buttons. It's all about all I do, really. So that's it. But no, I mean, it's the town halls that you do are great. I think we need more of that, and we need that communication to go ahead and get the lawmakers to understand, because if there's anything about New Mexico that is going to make it different from all the other states, is that we really don't like to be told what to do.
No,
we like to do things our own way.
Yeah.
And so far, so good. Tweak it all a little bit and get that that communication going between everybody. And I think, you're just giving an example for all the other states on how to get it done.
Appreciate it, man. And I hope that they don't follow what Michigan's doing, or California,
or Oregon,
or Oregon,
Oklahoma,
or Oklahoma, or Washington, Colorado.
Washington.
Yeah, like I'm glad they're kind of looking at.
Haven't heard anything bad about Arizona, haven't you? Or they're working on it.
They're in their own world too.
Yeah,
so they did it their own way, which is fine. Yeah. They did it their own way, and everyone left them alone for some reason. But for some reason, when it came to us, they wanted to fuck with us. So.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Oh, Justin, he wanted to pay me in kisses. That's all right, man. So
I'm not sure how I feel about that one, Joe.
Right, and if anybody has questions on the TikTok side or on the Twitch side, please, this is called Ask Chad Grassy Logic for a reason.
There we go.
And only
we'll
recently,
finally have you live up to your name with all this.
Right. And finally recently I was like, you know what? That's the component I think I'm missing from it is the community part and people asking me actual questions I can ask them answer to as well, not just me. Giving you information and everything. I can also teach you stuff if you ask me. So
hey, if I can learn,
right, exactly. We're on the different spectrums of different things.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you all for such a great season of season 3 of Ask Chad Grassy Logic, and those of you that joined me on TikTok, thank you so much. There was quite a bit of you actually. I'll probably be doing this next season. We'll be doing the Twitch thing next season, and
hopefully we'll get all of that lined out, and we can get all our guests on without any problem and all that.
We'll get all those stuff figured out and the logistics. When we're on break, we'll be back in January. I'll have a great surprise for you guys for the first episode, so I hope you guys tune in. I'm giving you a little hint of what's going to go down, and so Gino doesn't even know what's going to happen.
I don't even know.
Yeah, he doesn't even know. So
I don't know anything.
So thank you guys again. This has been a great episode. It's great to go out this way and try a couple of new things. And thank you all for your support throughout the years that we've been doing this.
Yeah, it's been years. We can say that now. And now time for a break.
Yeah, it's time for a break. I'm going to focus on a couple other things that needs my focus. And then we're going to recalibrate, and we'll be back in January. So thank you all again for joining us. Gino, thank you for being the producer, joining me on finally.
Thanks for putting me on camera.
I know, it's about damn time. Maybe we'll get a couple more cameras next season.
I don't have to make jokes in the background anymore. I can do them on camera. Thanks to you once again for doing this show. I love this opportunity to go ahead and help you out and learn all the new stuff that I've learned over these past couple of years. And just everybody, like you said, to see you in a few months, and enjoy your holidays, man.
Yeah, enjoy the holidays. Happy Halloween. Whatever you celebrate, enjoy it. We'll be back next year, and to be honest, it's gonna be close to the legislative session anyway. So I'm gonna be giving y'all a bunch of updates when that time comes. So thank you all again for watching. This is airing right now live on Twitch, but it's going to be edited and pushed out tomorrow on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, jump over to Twitch when the season starts next season so you can watch it live and ask some questions live and everything. So I'll see you guys next season. Y'all have a good time. All right, shoots.
Whoa.